Hello, my friend. Today, I'm going to show you my personal top 10 most difficult bosses in Black Myth Wukong. This list may surprise you, but I compiled it based on my own feelings about how difficult it was for me to defeat these enemies. So, here we go. 10th place, Wandering Wight. The meeting with this boss takes place at the very beginning. My monkey doesn't know how to do anything yet, and sometimes he gets hit in the head by powerful mobs. And here is such a healthy and aggressive boss at once. Of course, it was hard for me. Besides, I didn't know that you can just run past him and come back later. I thought that I had to destroy him. I spent a lot of time trying to do something with this enemy. I was dying over and over again. I started to level up my character on regular mobs to get more sparks, but it was all in vain. The first day of the game, I couldn't beat this boss. On the second day, I did. My happiness was boundless. It seemed to me that now any boss would not be a problem. I had learned how to dodge. How naive I was. The most interesting is yet to come. 9th place, Whiteclad Noble. Also the first chapter. This is the first boss with 2 stages, and each stage has its own health scale. Imagine my surprise and disappointment when I barely beat the boss in the first stage. I had almost no health left and no mana at all. For a few seconds, I was happy that I was so good and invincible. But then, I was so disappointed. The boss moved to the second stage, and there is no save between stages. I lost to him very quickly, and now I have to start all over again. I don't know exactly how many hours I spent on all my attempts, but I remember that I was on the verge of despair. I felt like I was doing something wrong, because you can't lose so much to a boss in the first chapter. But the developers decided that it was possible. When I defeated this boss, I didn't even have the strength to rejoice. I just stared at the screen, couldn't believe it had happened, and was afraid of what was going to happen next. 8th place, Stone Vanguard. This boss is from the second chapter. All other bosses of the first chapter, even the final one, were not difficult. At the beginning of the second chapter, I passed several bosses quite easily and calmed down. I thought that it was just my inability to play as a monkey that made the first few bosses difficult. And here we go again. Stone Vanguard. For the first 24 attempts and failures, I didn't even realize what happened. Only later did I learn to see and anticipate the enemy's attacks. Now I just had to go through the whole fight without making any mistakes. The fact is that a few mistakes in a row and defeat. Maybe it was just me, but this boss really pissed me off. I understood everything. I saw his attacks in advance, but I kept losing to him. Time after time, he mocked me and killed me. Sometimes I was just a little bit short of victory, and I knew that sooner or later it would happen. But I had to wait a long time. I don't consider myself to be a super skilled player, but I'm definitely not someone who doesn't know how to press buttons on time. Anyway, this boss made me feel all my patheticness. That's why I was so happy to defeat him. Later I found out that I could have activated Shigandang first, and he would have killed Stone Vanguard without me. But then, I would have been deprived of unforgettable impressions and emotions. 7th place, Mad Tiger. This boss is also in the second chapter. It opens after completing a secret quest about an old rattle. When I ducked into the well, I already knew that a boss was waiting for me there, but I didn't know that he would be so crazy. The boss was not like the others. He attacked non-stop and sometimes just didn't give me the opportunity to drink a bottle to replenish my health. At first, I died with a full bottle of health because I simply didn't have time not to use it. This boss took me about 2 hours of continuous attempts. As with all the bosses, I had to find my own key to him, find my own tactics. I'm not sure I could do it so well again, but I did it then. I left that boss with a slight dizziness. He stunned me so much. 6th place, Black Loong. Everyone says to come back to this boss later. He's not going anywhere. But I wanted to go through him right away. He's in the second chapter. And I spent a lot of energy on him too. At that time, his attacks almost always took almost half of my health. That is, he needed 2 to 3 hits to completely destroy me. But that wasn't the hardest part. By that time, I was more or less used to the mechanics of dodging, and having studied the boss's attacks, I skillfully avoided any damage. Well, maybe sometimes I could miss a hit, but the jar always saved my life. But his attack in waves, it's something incredible. While I survived the first wave attack in my transformation, the second one destroyed me. This happened many times, until one day I accidentally jumped on a rock and realized that it was the perfect place to wait out this terrible attack. Then it was a matter of technique, a couple of attempts, and the boss was defeated. 5th place, Tiger Vanguard. This gentleman might even be in the first place if not for the more difficult enemies. When I first approached the boss, I didn't know that I would be stuck with him for a very long time. The boss is fast. Sometimes it seemed to me that he attacks without any animation of the beginning of his attack. His attacks came one after the other, without a break. When I thought there was a pause, he attacked me again. I now understand why the arena with this boss is covered in blood. It's the blood of all the previous monkeys who came here before me. Honestly, if you play a little later than me, a couple of healthy barrels are added with my monkey's blood. It's something unreal. When you compete with this boss, your emotions jump as fast as this tiger in the arena. You feel anger, then despair, then hope, then despair again. Then confusion and powerlessness, and then hope, and then despair. And so on without stopping. I spent a lot of time fighting this boss. Just an unrealistic amount. I remember when I finally beat him, I just turned off the computer and went to bed. I didn't have the energy to see what was next. It was a very difficult boss. 4th place, Erlang, the Sacred Divinity. For some reason, this boss is called the most difficult in the game. Maybe it is, if you try to defeat him with brute force. Then it seems unrealistic. But when I came to visit this boss, I already had the experience of all the previous opponents. I already clearly understood that I had to find a certain tactic. I started with artifacts, and then everything was simple. I have a separate video where I talk in detail about the fight with this boss. Anyone can beat him using this guide. He was included in the list only because I really had to tinker with him a bit at the beginning, until I realized the right tactics. Before that, all the battles were hopeless. There was not even a hint of victory. That's why he realized that he needed to find a special approach. He got the 4th place because of the time he spent on his first attempts and finding the right strategy. After that, the boss was not difficult. 3rd place, Yellow Wind Sage. Surprisingly, this is the final boss of the 2nd chapter, and it is he who made it into my top 3 most difficult bosses of the entire game. Words cannot describe how long he tormented me. My first encounter with him was accidental. I was just exploring the area and didn't realize that he was the final boss. At first, I thought the boss was easy. Of course, I lost to him quickly, but I had a feeling that I just needed to study the boss and everything would be fine. But it didn't work out as expected. The boss has 3 phases, and although they take place in one line of his life, they have their own characteristics. These peculiarities killed me without regret. This is the first boss where I realized that I need to do more than just learn the boss's attacks to successfully avoid them. You also need to change your approach. What worked before with this boss stopped working. After 4 hours of futile attempts, I changed the main stance of my monkey. I started pumping the stance. I tried to divide the talents differently. In the end, it paid off. This victory came very hard, both mentally and physically. This is the boss that I approached with a little bit of fear in New Game Plus, because I remembered well how furiously he mocked me. 2nd place, Yin Tiger. The 2nd place, and another non-obvious leader of difficulty on my list. Let me know in the comments who managed to beat him easily. Like most players, I got to this boss in the 3rd chapter. I think he's there too early. Of course, you can leave it for later and come back to it, for example, in the 6th chapter, when your character has a strong staff, strong armor. But this is not my way. Since I was given the path to this boss in the 3rd chapter, I had to defeat him in the 3rd chapter, and apparently this stubbornness made me suffer with him for so long. After that game, I really dislike tigers. Any tigers, in any form. This boss can be beaten up a bit at the beginning, deal some damage, and then hide. But where can you hide from him? The difficulty is that he has a slightly strange delay before his attacks. The timing is very unusual, so you can't dodge continuously to avoid his attacks. You have to dodge with the same microscopic delay. And you have to do it not once or twice. It's so hard that I can't tell you. In addition, he disappears, then suddenly reappears, and if you don't have time to run away, the boss will cut you to pieces with his huge sword. This is the only boss that made me want to leave and come back later. I redesigned my build 50 times, looking for the most successful one. It's just something unreal. I understand that it would be easier to come to him later and not have so many problems, but it is precisely because I spent so many hours with him that Yin Tiger takes second place. First place, Yellowbrow. Here is the winner. What a nasty face he has, let me tell you. Yes, for me, this boss was the most difficult in the game. Even the final boss, Stone Monkey, wasn't that difficult. In fact, he didn't even make my list, because I had no problems with him. But this Yellowbrow, it's something crazy and incredible. The first phase is not so difficult. The second phase, where you have to knock out Macaque Chief, is quite simple. But the last, third phase of the battle with Yellowbrow is something that drove me crazy. If I were my monkey, I would run away from this game where he had to die and suffer so much. It was just some kind of mockery. I spent 2 days on this boss. In total, it's about 10 hours of game time, maybe even a little more. During the battle, I reached the stage of apathy. I thought it was the end of the game. This is the end of my Black Myth Wukong game. I'll never be able to beat this boss, and I'll just quit the game. I don't know what miracle I managed to gather my will and try again and again. I remember that there were moments when I thought that victory was near. Then I realized that I was wrong when I passed that stage, and it was even harder. I constantly lacked health, mana, agility, or skill. Some damage is impossible to dodge at all. The battle is designed in such a way that you receive mandatory damage twice per battle, and you need to leave separate jars of your life for this. Someday, I will get tired of this game, like many others, and delete it from my computer. Along with it, all the recorded files and saved materials will be erased. But I know for sure that I will keep my victorious battle with this boss for the rest of my life. It will remind me at times when things are difficult that I just need patience, and that's all. Patience and effort can overcome anything, not only in the game but also in real life. That's all. My list has come to an end. I'd be very interested if you could tell me which boss was the hardest for you in the game. If you liked my video, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I will be very pleased. See you soon, my friend. And don't forget to write what game you want to see next on my channel.